The rain started slowly at first, just a few drops on the windshield. Irregular, lazy, the kind of rain that makes you turn on the wipers once, twice, then off again, because it's not quite enough to need them yet. But you always know when it's going to get worse. There's a feeling in the air, a pressure, a heaviness that settles over everything like a blanket made of static and waiting. I'd been driving for hours, maybe 5, maybe more. Time has a way of becoming elastic on long drives through empty country. The highway stretched ahead, 2 lanes of cracked asphalt cutting through hills that rolled endlessly in shades of gray and green. No towns for miles, no gas stations, no signs of human presence except the road itself, and even that seemed uncertain, provisional, like nature was only tolerating it temporarily. The radio had lost its signal about an hour back, just static now, punctuated by occasional phantom voices that would surge up for a moment, then disappear, like drowning people breaking the surface before going under again. I'd turned it off. The silence was better. The hum of the engine, the sound of tires on wet pavement. These were enough. The drops came faster now, heavier. The sky had been darkening for the past 20 minutes, that particular greenish gray that means serious weather, storm weather, the kind that doesn't just pass over, but settles in, decides to stay a while. I should have been looking for shelter, a town, a rest stop, somewhere to wait it out. But there was nothing, just road and hills, and the sky pressing down like it had weight. Thunder rolled in the distance, low, prolonged, not a crack, but a rumble that you felt in your chest more than heard with your ears. The kind of thunder that suggests vast atmospheric machinery grinding into motion, powers and pressures organizing themselves, a storm becoming conscious of itself. I turned the wipers on. They swept across the windshield in their rhythmic arc, left to right, right to left, a metronome marking time. The rain was heavy enough now that without them the world would have dissolved into nothing but water and blur. With them, I could see maybe 50 feet ahead, the road, the white lines. The wall of rain beyond. Lightning flickered, not a bolt, not yet, just light bleeding through the clouds, illuminating them from within, making them visible as massive structures, architecture of vapor and electricity, castles of cumulus towering miles into the sky. For a moment, the world was bright, almost daylight, then darkness again, deeper for the contrast. Another roll of thunder, closer this time. The storm was catching up to me, or I was driving into it. Maybe both. Maybe the storm and I were moving toward some predetermined meeting point, drawn together by forces neither of us control. Let your breathing slow now, match it to the rhythm of the wipers. In as they sweep left, out as they sweep right. Steady, mechanical, soothing in its predictability. Your body is relaxing, sinking deeper into wherever you're resting. The tension of the day draining away like water down a gutter. You are safe, dry, warm. Outside, the storm does what storms do, but you are protected, separate, an observer. The rain intensified. Now it was coming down in sheets, waves of water that hammered the roof of the car with a sound like television static turned up loud, white noise that fills every space. The wipers struggled to keep up. Even at their fastest setting, there were moments between sweeps when the windshield was just water, just blur, and I was driving blind, trusting that the road would still be there, that I hadn't drifted, that the white lines would reappear. I slowed down, from 60 to 50, then to 40. Visibility was maybe 30 feet now, maybe less. The headlights seemed useless, just making the rain glow, creating a curtain of illuminated drops that obscured more than they revealed. But I kept them on anyway. In weather like this, you keep your lights on, not to see, but to be seen, though by whom, out here, was unclear. Thunder again, directly overhead this time, a crack that made the car shudder, made my hands tighten on the wheel. Lightning followed immediately, a branch of white fire that touched the hills somewhere to my left. For an instant, everything was stark and shadowless, every detail visible with painful clarity, then gone, leaving afterimages on my retinas, purple ghosts floating in the darkness. I needed to stop, to pull over, to wait this out. You don't drive in weather like this. You find somewhere safe and you wait. But there was nowhere. The shoulder was narrow, already flooding, water running in rivers down the slope of the road. Pulling over meant sitting half in the lane, invisible to anyone who might come from behind. Not that anyone would. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour, but still so I kept driving, slowly, carefully, hands at 10 and 2, eyes straining to see through the rain. The world had shrunk to almost nothing, just this small sphere of visibility. The car, the few feet of road immediately ahead. Everything else was water and darkness and the constant percussion of rain on metal. The rain had settled into a steady roar, not varying, not letting up, just constant, like the rain had always been falling and always would be. Like this was the natural state of the world, and everything else, the dry days and sunny skies, those had been the aberration. This was truth. Water falling from darkness. I turned off the engine. Sudden silence, except for the rain. No more mechanical hum, no more vibration. Just me and the storm and the view of the town below. Clearer now. More details emerging as my eyes adjusted, as lightning flashes illuminated different aspects of the scene. The buildings were old but well maintained. No broken windows, no peeling paint. Everything looked solid, cared for, inhabited, or at least inhabitable. The main street was wide, probably once accommodated diagonal parking on both sides. The streetlights were evenly spaced, those old-fashioned kind with ornamental posts and glass globes. They cast pools of warm light on the wet pavement. Between the pools, shadows, but not threatening shadows, just the natural absence of light. Your body is so heavy now. Your muscles have forgotten how to hold tension. Shoulders down, jaw loose, hands resting gently. Nothing to grip, nothing to hold. Just the soft weight of complete relaxation pulling you down like gravity, like water, like sleep itself reaching up to claim you. A church stood at the near end of town, white clapboard with a tall steeple, a bell tower. Even from this distance, I could see the details, the careful architecture. The cross at the apex of the steeple. Lightning flashed, and the church was momentarily bright, every detail sharp, then shadow again. But the image remained in my mind perfect, preserved. Next to the church, a large building that might have been a town hall or community center, brick, 3 stories, windows on all floors, many of them lit, curtains visible in some, shapes that might have been furniture in others, but no movement, no shadows passing across the lit spaces, no indication that anyone was inside. Across the street, a row of storefronts. I could make out signs even through the rain. A general store, a pharmacy, what looked like a diner, though the sign was too weathered to read clearly. All the lights were on, inside lights, not just security lights, the warm glow of occupied spaces, but the doors were closed, the windows dark despite the lights. No neon open signs, no indication of business. The theater was unmistakable. The marquee stretched across the front of the building. In a lightning flash, I caught the words on it, but they made no sense. Letters jumbled. Or maybe in some language I didn't recognize. Or maybe my eyes were just tired, translating rain and shadow into meaning where none existed. The bulbs around the marquee were lit, hundreds of them. They should have been chasing the classic marquee animation, but they were all on at once, steady, burning with patient incandescence. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let the darkness behind your eyelids become the rainy night. Let the sound of rain fade into background, not gone, still there, but distant, removed. You are protected. You are dry. You are safe in this space between waking and dreaming where stories live. I looked for cars. There were none. Not parked on the street, not in driveways, not behind buildings. The town appeared to have no vehicles whatsoever, which was impossible. Even abandoned towns have cars left behind, rusting. But this town wasn't abandoned. The lights were on. So where were the cars? And where were the people? A town this size, even a small one, maybe 200 residents. On a stormy night, most would be indoors. That made sense, but all of them, every single person, no one checking the street, no one looking out windows, no one making a dash from one building to another, just emptiness, just lit windows and glowing streetlights and the rain falling through it all, indifferent and eternal. I wiped condensation from the inside of my windshield. My breath had fogged it without my noticing. The glass was cold. Outside was maybe 50 degrees. Inside the car, still warm from the heater, but cooling fast. Soon I'd need to start the engine again, run the heat, but not yet. I wanted to watch, to understand, to figure out what I was seeing. The main street ran straight for maybe a quarter mile, then curved gently to the left, disappearing behind buildings. Streetlights continued along the curve, fading into rain and distance. I couldn't see the far end of town, couldn't tell if there were more buildings beyond the curve, or if the town simply stopped, giving way to fields and forest again. Thunder rumbled, constant now. Not discrete booms, but a continuous, low-frequency vibration, the kind you feel in your bones, the kind that suggests enormous energies being exchanged overhead, clouds becoming electrically charged, positive and negative, building potential, waiting for the resistance of air to break down, to allow the current to flow, to complete the circuit between sky and ground. Lightning answered. Multiple bolts, simultaneous, branching across the sky in fractal patterns. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, the world was bright as noon, the town revealed in every detail, and I saw something that made my breath catch. The buildings had no doors. I blinked, looked again, waiting for the next lightning flash. When it came, I focused on the storefronts across from the church. The general store, the pharmacy. Where doors should have been, there were just walls. Brick and wood siding, continuous and unbroken. Windows, yes, but no doors. No way in, no way out. Impossible. I was seeing it wrong. The angle, the rain, the lightning creating illusions. I leaned forward, wiping the windshield again, squinting, waiting for more light. Your eyes are heavy. You can feel it, the weight of them, the effort it takes to keep them open. And you don't need to keep them open. This is a story. You can listen with your eyes closed. You can see it all in your mind. The rain, the road, the darkness. Let your eyelids fall. Let the weight of exhaustion pull them down. There's relief in closing your eyes, in letting go, in allowing someone else to watch the road while you rest. The storm showed no signs of letting up. If anything, It was intensifying. The thunder was almost continuous now, a bass rumble punctuated by sharp cracks. The lightning came in flashes and flickers, strobing the world. Rain, dark, each flash revealing a landscape that seemed unreal, too vivid, too stark, like a photograph, like something that shouldn't be moving but was. I'd lost track of time. How long had I been driving in this? 20 minutes? An hour? The clock on the dashboard glowed its green numbers, but they seemed arbitrary, meaningless. Time was measured now in the sweep of wipers, in the intervals between lightning strikes, in the slow counting of my own heartbeat, elevated slightly by adrenaline and focus, but steady, reliable. And then, ahead, something changed. At first I thought it was lightning, a glow in the distance, but it didn't fade. It stayed constant, warm, yellowish. Not the white-blue of lightning, but something softer, something that suggested light bulbs, windows, human presence. I leaned forward, squinting through the rain. The glow resolved slowly into individual points of light. Streetlights, window lights, the lights of a town, small, maybe a dozen buildings, but unmistakably there, unmistakably real. Relief washed over me. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been, how the isolation and the storm had wound me tight. But here was civilization. Here was shelter, a place to stop, to wait out the storm. Maybe a gas station still open, a diner. Even if everything was closed, I could park under a streetlight, sit in relative safety, not feel quite so alone in the middle of this vast weather. The road curved gently to the right. The town came more fully into view. It sat in a small valley between hills, a single main street with buildings on both sides, old buildings, brick and wood, 2 or 3 stories, the kind of architecture that speaks of a different era, early 20th century maybe. The streetlights were old too, not modern sodium vapor orange, but warmer, incandescent. They glowed in the rain like small suns, each surrounded by a halo of moisture. I slowed further, looking for a turnoff, a road that would take me down into the valley, into the town. But there wasn't one. The highway continued straight, running along the ridge above the valley, parallel to the town but not connected to it. I could see it clearly now, the full length of the main street, the buildings with their lit windows, the streetlights marking regular intervals, but no road leading down. That was strange, but not impossible. Small towns sometimes grew up in odd places. Maybe the turnoff was ahead. Maybe I'd passed it and hadn't noticed in the rain. I could turn around, go back, find it, or I could keep going. Hope there was another town ahead, one easier to reach. Thunder rolled again. The rain hammered harder, if that was possible. Water was running across the road now in streams, the wipers beating futilely, and the town sat there in the valley, glowing, inviting, impossibly peaceful in the middle of the storm. I pulled over, not off the road. There was nowhere to go, but I slowed to a stop, hazard lights on. I needed a moment to think, to decide. The town was maybe a quarter mile away, close enough to see clearly in the lightning flashes, far enough that details were fuzzy, but I could make out the buildings, a church steeple, what might have been a theater marquee, the main street running straight through the center of town, and no movement, no cars, no people, just the lights, just the buildings, just the stillness. Let yourself sink deeper now. Your breathing is so slow, so steady. The sound of rain is everywhere, constant and soothing. White noise that fills your mind, pushes out thoughts, leaves only the present moment. The story, the images forming behind your closed eyes. You are there, in the car, looking down at the impossible town. And you are here, safe and warm, drifting toward sleep. Both are true. Both are real. I sat there for what might have been 5 minutes, might have been 20. The engine idled, the wipers swept, the rain fell, and the town glowed in the valley below, untouched by the storm, existing in its own pocket of stillness. Something about it wasn't right, but I couldn't name what. Just a feeling, an instinct, the kind of knowing that lives in the body, in the animal brain that still remembers when the world was full of dangers. The thinking brain said, town, shelter, safety, but the deeper brain said, wait, watch, don't approach. So I waited and watched, and the rain fell, and the thunder rolled, and the town sat there in the valley, glowing and still and impossible and real, waiting for nothing, promising nothing, just existing in the heart of the storm like a secret the weather was keeping. The next flash was dimmer, distant, but enough to see, and yes, no doors. The buildings were sealed, perfect facades with windows and lights, but no entrances, like stage sets, like paintings, like the idea of a town rather than an actual town. Your breathing is so slow now, you might not even notice it, automatic, effortless, the way it happens in deep sleep. And that's where you're going, toward that deep place where the conscious mind steps back and the dreaming mind emerges, where impossible things become possible, where towns without doors can exist, and it doesn't seem strange, it just seems true. I should have been frightened, or at least unsettled, but I wasn't. There was something peaceful about the town, despite its impossibilities, despite its emptiness. It radiated calm. The lights glowed with steady patience. The buildings stood solid and certain. The rain fell around it, but seemed gentler there, less violent, as if the storm was protecting the town, or the town was protected from the storm. A bubble of stillness in the chaos of weather. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I let it out slowly, breathed in. The air in the car smelled like rain, even though I was dry. That peculiar petrichor smell, ozone and wet earth, the smell of storms. It was comforting somehow, familiar. The smell of childhood summers, when thunderstorms were exciting rather than threatening, when watching rain was entertainment, when the world felt both larger and safer, more lightning. I focused on different buildings now, the town hall, the theater, the church, looking for doors, looking for any way in, and finding none. Every building the same, windows and walls, lights and shadows, but no doors, no steps leading up to doors, no awnings over doors, no indication that doors had ever existed or ever would exist. The street itself was pristine, no potholes, no cracks. The pavement looked new despite the old-fashioned streetlights. The curbs were clean, no litter, no leaves, no debris, as if the town had been placed there complete and finished, and nothing had been allowed to change or decay or even settle into the natural disorder that marks all inhabited places. I checked my phone. No signal. Not surprising out here, but also no time. The clock on the phone showed dashes where numbers should be. The battery indicator was full, but the charge percentage was gone, replaced by a symbol I didn't recognize, a circle with a line through it, or maybe just a zero. I pressed the power button. The screen went dark. I pressed it again. Nothing. The phone had stopped working. Fine, I didn't need it. I had a watch, except my watch had stopped too. The second hand frozen between 7 and 8, the time showing 3:47, but that couldn't be right. It had been late afternoon when I started driving. Sunset at 6:30 or so, then twilight, then dark, then the storm. It had to be at least 9 or 10 by now, probably later. But the watch said 3:47 and the second hand didn't move. Time had stopped, or become meaningless, or was operating under different rules here, in the storm. In the presence of the town that glowed and offered no entrance, let that thought drift away. Time doesn't matter in sleep. In dreams, you can dream an entire lifetime in 8 hours, or 8 hours can pass in what feels like seconds. Time is flexible, plastic, not a river flowing in one direction, but a landscape you can move through in any direction, forward, backward, sideways, into moments that never existed but feel like memories. The windows of the buildings glowed, that warm yellow light, incandescent. I could see through some of them, curtains pulled back or absent. Inside were rooms, furnished rooms. I could make out shapes, a table, chairs, what might have been a bookshelf. In one window, on the second floor of the town hall, a lamp, just a lamp on a table, the kind with a cloth shade, glowing, casting its small circle of light, and no one to turn it on, no one to turn it off, just burning, waiting. The diner. I focused on the diner, large front windows. I could see inside fairly clearly. The counter with red vinyl stools, the booths along the wall, the pie case, even what looked like coffee pots on warmers. Everything in place, everything ready, but no one there. No waitress, no cook, no customers. Just an empty diner with all its lights on, waiting for a morning rush that would never come. Or maybe it would. Maybe at some specific time, under some specific conditions, the town filled with people. Maybe right now, somewhere, they were all gathered, in a building I couldn't see, or underground, or simply not visible from my vantage point. Maybe in 5 minutes, the streets would fill, doors would appear, people would emerge. The town would become real and normal and explicable, but I didn't believe that. This town existed alone, empty, a place where lights burned and buildings stood, but life had never moved and never would. A town for the storm, a town of the storm, appearing only when the weather was right, when the conditions aligned, when someone like me happened to be driving this particular road at this particular time and pulled over and looked down into the valley and saw thunder again. So loud it rattled the car windows, lightning immediately after. A bolt that connected cloud to ground somewhere in the hills behind the town. The flash was blue-white and lasting, almost painful, and in that sustained light I saw the entire town laid out. Every building, every streetlight, every window, the curve of the main street, the buildings beyond the curve. Maybe 30 structures in total. A complete small town. Perfect, impossible, real. And I saw one more thing. In the upstairs window of the building next to the theater, a figure, standing, motionless, facing outward, toward the storm, toward me. I didn't breathe, couldn't breathe. The lightning faded, but the afterimage remained, burned into my retinas. The figure in the window, tall, thin, perfectly still, facing out. The window was lit from behind, so I couldn't make out details, just the silhouette, the suggestion of a human shape, head, shoulders, the posture of someone standing at a window, looking out at the rain, looking at the storm, looking at me. No, that was impossible. From that distance, through the rain, the figure couldn't possibly see me, couldn't know I was here. I was on the ridge, above the town, in the dark, in a car, invisible, anonymous, an observer, not observed, not seen, not known, but the figure stood there. in the window, facing exactly my direction. And something in the perfect stillness of it, the absolute lack of motion, suggested awareness, intentionality, presence. Let your muscles release. You're holding tension without meaning to, in your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Let it all go. Soften, sink. There's nothing to defend against. This is just a story. Just words in the darkness. Just images forming in your mind. The figure in the window can't see you, can't reach you. You are safe. You are removed. You are here, wherever here is for you, warm and dry and far from storms. I waited for more lightning, to see the figure again, to confirm it was there, to prove I hadn't imagined it. But the lightning was sporadic now, dimmer, farther away. The main body of the storm was moving on. Still raining hard, but the electrical activity was diminishing. The thunder more distant, the sky still dark, but less oppressive, less heavy. Long minutes passed. My eyes stayed fixed on that window. Second floor, third, building from the left, past the theater. I memorized the location. In the next flash, I'd look there first. I'd see, but when the lightning came, brief and dim, I couldn't find the window. I couldn't orient myself. Everything looked different in the sudden light. The angle wrong, the buildings not quite where I thought they should be. By the time my eyes adjusted, the light was gone. Darkness again, and the image in my mind, uncertain. Had there even been a building there? Was I looking at the right street, the right town? Of course I was. The town was right there, glowing, unchanged. The streetlights marking the main street. The church with its steeple. The theater with its marquee. All exactly where they'd been. So why did I suddenly feel disoriented? Why did the geography seem slippery? Like trying to remember the layout of a house from a dream. You know the rooms are there, but you can't quite map them. Can't quite hold their positions in your mind. I rubbed my eyes. Exhaustion, that's all. I'd been driving for hours, then sitting here in the car, in the dark, in the rain, staring at a strange town. My mind was tired, playing tricks, filling in details that weren't there, creating patterns and meanings from random configurations of light and shadow. The figure was just a curtain, or a trick of the light, or nothing at all. Just the suggestion of a shape that my pattern recognition instincts latched onto and interpreted as human. We see faces in clouds, in wood grain, in random static. The human brain is designed to find human features even when they're not there, especially when they're not there. Because in our evolutionary past, missing a predator was fatal. Seeing a predator that wasn't there was just embarrassing. So we evolved to err on the side of seeing. The figure was nothing. I was alone. The town was empty. These were facts, provable, obvious, and yet your heartbeat is so steady, so calm, you can feel it if you pay attention. The gentle pulse, reliable, automatic, a rhythm you've carried your whole life, from your first moment to this one, and it will carry you through this night and into tomorrow. It will carry you into sleep, into dreams, and back out again into morning, trustworthy, eternal. The drumbeat of your life. I started the car. The engine turned over immediately. Headlights came on. Heater started blowing. The sounds and vibrations of machinery, familiar, grounding. I was in a car, on a road, in a storm. These were normal things, explicable things. The town was an anomaly, but not a threat. Just a place I'd happened to see. Strange, yes. Impossible, probably, but not dangerous. Not malevolent. Just there I could leave. Put the car in gear. Drive on. Follow the highway wherever it led. Find a real town, one with open doors and people and gas stations, one that appeared on maps, one that would still be there in the morning. That would be the sensible thing, the rational thing, but I didn't move. Not yet. Something held me. Curiosity, maybe, or the sense that I was supposed to be here, that this moment had been arranged somehow, that pulling over at this exact spot, seeing this town, this was meant to happen, not in any mystical or fatalistic sense, just in the sense that sometimes the threads of chance align and you find yourself in a place, in a situation that feels significant even if you can't say why. The rain was lightening, not stopping, but definitely decreasing. I could see farther now, the details of the town sharper, and yes, there was the building. Third from the theater. Second floor window. No figure now. Just the glow of interior light, curtains pulled back, an empty room, a lamp on a table. Nothing more had there ever been a figure. I was less certain now. Memory is unreliable, malleable. It changes every time we access it. The figure had seemed so real in the moment, but now, minutes later, it felt more like a possibility than a certainty. Something I might have seen, or might have thought I saw, or might have imagined so vividly that imagination became indistinguishable from perception. The town sat there, patient, eternal, waiting for nothing. The lights continued to burn. The buildings stood. The streets stretched empty and perfect. And I sat above it, watching, a witness to something that shouldn't exist but did. A town without doors, without people, without any clear purpose or reason, just existing in the storm, just being. Let yourself drift. You're so relaxed now, so heavy. The boundary between your body and the surface beneath it is blurring. You can't quite tell where you end and it begins. You're sinking, not falling, just settling, like a stone through water, slowly, inevitably, toward the bottom, toward rest, toward the place where consciousness goes when it stops working and allows sleep to take over. I turned on the radio, static as expected, but I left it on. The white noise was comforting. It filled the space, covered the silence, made the car feel less isolated. I adjusted the volume, low, just a background hiss, like rain, like the ocean, like the sound of blood moving through your ears when everything else is quiet. And then, through the static, something else. Not a voice, not music, but a tone, a single note, low, sustained, almost below the threshold of hearing. You felt it more than heard it, a vibration, a hum. It didn't waver, didn't change pitch, just held, steady, eternal. The frequency of the universe, the sound that exists beneath all other sounds. I turned the volume up. The tone became clearer, definite, like a tuning fork that had been struck and would ring forever. It was coming from the radio, but also from somewhere else, from outside, from the town, from the air itself. Everything resonating at this one frequency, this one note. It wasn't unpleasant. It was actually soothing, grounding, like a drone in meditation, like the OM of Buddhist chant, like the sound of a refrigerator or air conditioner that becomes so constant you stop noticing it. It fills the space. It becomes the space. And you exist within it, cradled by its vibration, held by its constancy. The town glowed. The rain fell. The tone sustained. And I sat in the car, watching, listening, feeling the storm and the night and the impossible town all merge into one experience. One moment that stretched and expanded until it was all moments, until time stopped having meaning, until past and future collapsed into an eternal now where nothing changed and nothing would ever change, where everything was exactly as it should be, and always had been, and always would be. Thunder, distant now. The storm, moving on, moving east, following the road I'd been traveling, leaving this place, leaving the town, leaving me. Soon it would be just rain, then drizzle, then nothing. The clouds would break, stars would appear, and in the morning, sun, but the town would be gone by then. I knew this without knowing how I knew. The town existed only in the storm, only when the conditions were right, when the rain was hard enough, when the lightning was close enough, when someone happened to be passing by and happened to stop and happened to look down into the valley at exactly the right moment. Tomorrow, the valley would be empty, just grass and trees, maybe a stream, but no buildings, no streetlights, no glowing windows. The town would have returned to wherever it came from, or ceased to exist, or shifted into some other dimension where it waited for the next storm, for the next witness. I should document this, take pictures, video, proof that I'd seen it, proof that it existed. But my phone was dead, and somehow I knew that even if it worked, the images wouldn't show anything. The town wouldn't appear on sensors. Only human eyes could see it. Only human consciousness could perceive it. It existed at the intersection of reality and mind, a place that was both external and internal, both there and not there, real and imagined simultaneously. Your breathing is so shallow now, so quiet, the kind of breathing that happens in deep sleep, when the body is almost dormant, when consciousness has withdrawn, when dreams are preparing to emerge. Let yourself slip further. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing you need to remember, just the story, just the rain, just the gentle pull of sleep. The figure, was it still there? I looked at the window again. Second floor, third building, past the theater. The light glowed, the room was visible, and yes, the figure was back, or had never left, standing in exactly the same position, same posture, same orientation, facing the storm, facing me. We looked at each other across the distance, across the rain, the figure and I, neither moving, neither acknowledging the other overtly, but both aware, both present, both witnesses to this moment that existed outside normal time. I raised my hand, slowly, and placed it against the car window, palm flat against the cold glass. A gesture of what? Greeting, acknowledgement, farewell. I didn't know, it just felt necessary, felt right. The figure didn't respond, didn't move, but something changed. The quality of its stillness, as if it had been waiting, and now the waiting was complete. As if the purpose of the town, the reason for its appearance, had been fulfilled. I had seen it. I had stopped. I had watched, and that was enough. That was all that was required. The light in the window dimmed, just slightly, just enough to notice. And the figure was no longer there, not gone suddenly, not disappeared, just no longer present, as if it had stepped back from the window, into the room, into the deeper shadows. Out of sight, I lowered my hand. The window was fogged where my palm had been, condensation from the warmth of my skin. I traced a symbol in the fog without thinking, a circle, then a line through it. The same symbol my phone had shown before it died. I didn't know what it meant, still don't, but it felt important, felt like the right thing to do. The town continued to glow, but dimmer now. The streetlights not as bright, the windows not as warm, as if power was draining, as if the storm had sustained it and the storm was leaving. And now the town was leaving too, fading, not all at once, but gradually, gracefully, a slow fade like the end of a film. Sleep is here now, all around you, in you. You are more asleep than awake. The story continues, but you hear it from far away, from the other side of consciousness. From the dreaming place where stories become experiences, where words become visions, where you are not listening but living, not hearing but being. The rain had become a whisper, still falling but gentler, softer, the drops smaller. The sound on the roof of the car changing from a roar to a murmur to something almost musical, a patter, a rhythm, like fingers on a drumhead, like the gentlest applause. The storm was dying, exhausting itself, giving back to the earth all the water it had lifted from oceans and lakes, completing the cycle. I'd been sitting here for how long? An hour. Time had become slippery, unreliable, a concept that no longer applied in any meaningful way. The watch on my wrist still showed 3:47, the second hand still frozen, but something in my body, in the deep instinctual part that tracks day and night regardless of clocks, suggested it was very late, past midnight, the darkest part of the night when most people are asleep and the world belongs to owls and raccoons and those few humans who, for whatever reason, find themselves awake and alone. The tone from the radio had faded, or maybe I'd just stopped hearing it. The way you stop hearing a ticking clock or running water after a while. The brain filters out constant stimuli, decides they're not important, pushes them into the background. The static remained, but even that seemed quieter, as if the radio itself was falling asleep, as if everything was falling asleep. Your eyelids are so heavy, like they're weighted, like someone placed coins on them the way ancient peoples did for the dead, to keep the eyes closed, to keep the gaze turned inward, toward whatever comes after. You don't need to see anymore. The story is in your mind now, playing out in the darkness behind your eyes, more vivid than anything external could ever be. The town's lights were definitely dimmer, no question now. The streetlights that had glowed like small suns were now more like candles, still there, still visible, but fading, the windows to the warm yellow light becoming cooler, paler, like dawn light, although dawn was still hours away, like the light was leaching out of the buildings, draining away, returning to wherever light goes when it's no longer needed. I thought about starting the car, driving closer, finding a way down into the valley, walking the empty streets while I still could, before the town disappeared completely, because it was disappearing. That was clear. This was my only chance. If I left now, if I drove away, I would never see this place again, never have another opportunity. But I didn't move. Something held me in the car, not fear exactly, more like respect, like understanding that the town had rules, boundaries, and those boundaries were clear, even if unspoken. Watch, but don't approach. See, but don't enter. Bear witness, but remain separate. I was meant to be here, on this ridge. At this distance, any closer would be transgression, violation, breaking something that shouldn't be broken. The church was almost invisible now. The white clapboard that had been so clear earlier was now gray, spectral. The steeple was still visible against the sky, but barely, like a pencil sketch on charcoal paper. Suggestion rather than substance. The cross at the top caught a glimmer of lightning from the retreating storm, flashed once, then faded. The theater marquee's bulbs were going out, not all at once, but in sequence, like someone was walking along flipping switches, starting from one end and working toward the other, each bulb dimming then dying, leaving gaps in the line, spaces where light had been. The letters on the marquee, which I'd never been able to read clearly, were now completely illegible, just dark shapes. Maybe they'd never been letters at all. Maybe they'd been something else, symbols or nothing, or words in a language that had been forgotten before humans learned to write. Let your body become weightless, not floating, not rising, but just without weight, without mass, as if gravity had forgotten you, as if you existed between states, not quite physical, not quite ethereal, just somewhere in between, comfortable there, content, needing nothing, being everything. The diner's lights were still on but low. I could no longer see inside. The windows reflected what little light remained, rather than allowing vision through dark mirrors, showing nothing, revealing nothing. The pie case that had been so clear earlier was now just a suggestion, a shadow. Maybe it had never been there. Maybe I'd imposed what I expected to see onto ambiguous shapes. The mind does that, fills in details, creates patterns, makes sense of insufficient information. The building where I'd seen the figure, that window, was dark now. Completely dark, not dimmed, but extinguished. As if that room had never been lit. As if the figure had taken the light with it when it stepped back, when it withdrew, when it completed whatever purpose it had served by standing there, by being seen, by allowing itself to be witnessed. I wondered about the figure, what it was, who it was. Had it been human or something else? Something that wore a human shape, because that's what I expected to see. That's what my mind could process. Maybe its true form was something I couldn't comprehend, something that would break my brain if I saw it directly. So it chose a form, stood in a window, let me see the shape of it, the idea of it, the approximation, or maybe it had been nothing, a play of light, a shadow, my tired mind creating meaning from randomness. That was possible, likely even, the rational explanation, the sensible one, and yet it had felt like presence, like awareness, like something that saw me seeing it, like communication without words, like understanding passing between us even though we were separate, even though we existed in different spaces, different realities maybe. Thunder rumbled, far away now, almost gone, the sound of it barely distinguishable from the general ambience of night. Could have been a truck on a distant highway, could have been wind in the trees, could have been anything. The storm was over, or over enough. The main event had passed. What remained was cleanup, residual rain, the slow process of the atmosphere settling, pressure equalizing, order returning. Your mind is so quiet, thoughts arising but slowly, spaced far apart, long gaps of silence between them, like breaths, like heartbeats, like waves on a shore where the tide is going out. Each thought a little smaller than the last, a little less energetic, a little more ready to stop, to cease, to allow the deeper silence to take over completely. The street was almost invisible now. The pavement that had been so clear, so wet and reflective, was now just darkness. The streetlights weren't strong enough anymore to illuminate it, weren't strong enough to define the space. The town was losing its geometry, its structure, dissolving back into possibility, into potential, into the state that exists before things become real, before they take form, before they enter the world. I realized I was saying goodbye, not consciously, not deliberately, but something in me was releasing, letting go, accepting that this experience was ending, that the town had shown itself, had been seen, and now was withdrawing, going back, returning to wherever it lived when storms weren't providing the conditions for its manifestation. Would I remember this? Tomorrow, in daylight, with the sun up and the storm long gone, would this seem real? Or would it fade like a dream fades, present and vivid when you first wake, but dissolving within minutes, until by breakfast you can't recall anything but the vaguest impressions. Maybe that's what this was. A dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and isolation and the hypnotic effect of driving too long in bad weather. But no, this was real as anything. The town existed. I'd seen it. And the fact that it would be gone in the morning, the fact that I'd never find it again, that didn't make it less real, just made it rare, conditional, a phenomenon that required specific circumstances, like an eclipse, like the northern lights, like a particular quality of sunset that happens once and never again. Real, but unrepeatable. The church was gone, just gone. The space where it had been was now empty, or filled with darkness so complete that it amounted to the same thing. The steeple that had pointed skyward like a finger indicating heaven was no longer there, hadn't faded, hadn't gradually disappeared. At some moment while I was looking elsewhere, it had simply ceased to be visible, ceased to exist. At least for me, at least from here. The other buildings were following, one by one, winking out, not dying, but withdrawing, stepping back, becoming invisible. The theater went next, then the town hall, then the storefronts, like lights going out in houses at night when families retire. One window dark, then another, until the whole neighborhood is asleep, until the only light is streetlights, until the human presence has withdrawn and the night can be itself again. Your heartbeat is so slow, so quiet, like it's happening far away to someone else, to a body you used to inhabit but have now left. You are just consciousness now, just awareness, floating in darkness, in peace, in the space between sleeping and waking, where everything is possible and nothing is required, where you can rest without effort, be without trying, exist without doing. The last streetlight flickered, once, twice, then held steady for a long moment, a final moment, and then it too dimmed, faded, went out, and the valley was dark, completely dark. No lights, no buildings, no indication that anything had ever been there, just darkness and rain, just the natural landscape, just what had always been there and always would be there. The town was gone. I sat in the car, looking at the space where it had been. The rain continued, softer now, almost mist, the kind of rain that's more feeling than precipitation, that settles on skin without seeming to fall, that comes from everywhere and nowhere. The thunder was silent now, no more lightning. The storm had moved on, crossed the mountains, followed the highway east toward cities and towns that would wake to wet streets and dripping trees and no memory of what the storm had carried with it, what it had revealed, what it had allowed to exist for a few hours in a hidden valley on a road that led nowhere. I should have felt loss or disappointment or confusion, but I felt none of those things. I felt calm, complete, like I'd witnessed something important, something that would stay with me, not as a memory that would fade, but as a knowing that would persist. The town existed. It was real, and I'd seen it, and that was enough. That was everything. The rain stopped, not gradually, not tapering off. It just stopped. One moment falling, next moment not. The silence was sudden and total. No rain on the roof, no rain on the windshield, no sound at all except my own breathing. Even that seemed loud in the stillness, intrusive, like I was breaking the quiet, like I should hold my breath, become as still as the world around me. Sleep now. Let yourself slip completely. You've been hovering at the edge for so long, resisting, hanging on, but you don't need to anymore. The story is safe. It will continue. It will carry you. You can let go. You can trust. You can fall into the soft darkness and know that you'll be held, that you won't be lost, that sleep is not an ending but a transition, a doorway, a step into another kind of existence where different rules apply and different truths are possible. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, just to rest them. Just for a moment, the darkness behind my eyelids was complete, perfect, like the darkness in the valley, like the darkness that had swallowed the town, and in that darkness, an image formed, not seen with my eyes, seen with something else. Memory, maybe, or imagination, or the part of consciousness that perceives things that aren't quite real and aren't quite not real. The town, glowing, complete, every light burning, every window illuminated, every building solid and present, the way it had been at its brightest before the fading began. And in the window, second floor, third building past the theater, the figure standing, watching, its hand raised, palm against the glass, mirroring my gesture from earlier, acknowledging saying goodbye, or hello, or thank you, or see you next time, or all of these, or none of these, just a gesture, human or not, aware, present, real, and I understood. This was the image I was meant to keep, not the fading, not the disappearance, but the town at its peak, at its most real. This was the truth of it, the essence, the thing that mattered. The town existed most fully when it was seen, when it was witnessed, when someone stopped and looked and paid attention. That's when it became real. That's when it stepped from potential into actuality, from possibility into presence. Without witnesses, does anything exist? If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Old philosophical questions, unanswerable, maybe. But the town seemed to answer them, to say, existence requires consciousness. Reality is relationship. Things become real when they're perceived, when they're acknowledged, when they're held in awareness. I had done that. I had held the town in awareness, and in doing so, I had made it real, had allowed it to exist, had given it the gift of being, and it had given me something in return. This moment, this experience, this strange communion across the barrier between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between the possible and the impossible, between the real and the more than real. You are asleep now, or so close to sleep that it makes no difference. The words wash over you like water. You don't grasp them, don't analyze them, just let them flow. Let them carry you deeper. Let them take you wherever you need to go, to dreams, to rest, to the place where your consciousness refreshes itself, where you let go of today and prepare for tomorrow, where you're safe, where you're held, where nothing can harm you and everything is exactly as it should be. The silence was extraordinary. Not just the absence of rain, not just the absence of thunder, but the absence of everything. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic, no owl calls, no rustling leaves, just silence so complete it seemed to have substance, to have weight, like it was pressing down, filling all the spaces, leaving no room for sound. I opened my eyes. The windshield was covered in condensation. My breath had fogged it completely while my eyes were closed. Or maybe the mist outside had settled on the glass. Either way, I couldn't see through it. The world outside was hidden, obscured, unknown. I reached forward and wiped a clear space with my hand. The glass was cold, wet. My palm came away damp, and through the clearing I'd made, I could see the valley, dark, completely dark. No town, no lights, no indication that anything had ever been there. just the vague shapes of hills against a slightly lighter sky, terrain, geography, the bones of the land showing through. Let yourself sink deeper. Your body has been relaxing throughout this entire story, muscle by muscle, breath by breath. But now go even deeper. Let go of even the awareness of relaxation. Stop monitoring, stop checking, just be, just exist, just rest in the complete surrender that is deep sleep, where you are not present to yourself, where consciousness has stepped back completely and allows the body to do its healing work unobserved. The clock on the dashboard still showed the same wrong time, but something had changed. The dash lights were dimmer, or maybe my eyes were adjusting, or maybe the battery was draining. How long had I been sitting here with the engine off? Hours probably. In cold weather, that would be fine, but it wasn't that cold. And I'd had the heater running before, and the headlights. I should start the engine. Make sure I could still start it. Make sure I wouldn't be stranded here. But I didn't want to break the silence. The engine would be so loud, so violent, an intrusion. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted to sit a little longer in the quiet, the dark. In the aftermath of whatever had just happened, my phone was still dead, still showing that strange symbol. I held the power button for a long count. Nothing. Tried the home button. Nothing. The device was completely inert. A rectangle of glass and metal and electronics that no longer functioned, that had stopped functioning at the exact moment I'd noticed the town. Coincidence, probably, but maybe not. Maybe the town and normal technology couldn't exist in the same space. Maybe the conditions that allowed the town to manifest were incompatible with electricity, with digital information, with the normal functioning of the modern world. Your thoughts are so slow now, rising, drifting, fading like bubbles in still water, forming at the bottom, ascending, popping at the surface. Each thought smaller than the last, each thought less urgent, less important. Soon there will be no thoughts at all, just the empty awareness that is sleep, the peaceful blankness, the reset. I tried the radio, turned the dial. Static, just static. No tone anymore. No voices, no music, not even the distant bleed over from some powerful station hundreds of miles away. Just the hiss of empty frequencies, the sound of nothing being broadcast, or nothing being received, or both. I turned it off. The silence rushed back, even more complete for having been briefly interrupted, and in that silence I could hear my own heartbeat, the blood moving through my ears, the quiet mechanism of my body doing its work, breathing, circulating, existing, the sounds we never notice because they're always there. But in this silence, they were audible, present, almost loud. The valley was lightening, not much, just barely. The darkness changing quality, becoming less opaque, more transparent. The hills emerging as distinct shapes rather than just darker areas against the dark sky. Dawn was coming, still distant, but inevitable. The earth turning, the sun approaching the horizon. The mechanics of the solar system grinding on, regardless of storms, regardless of strange towns, regardless of isolated witnesses sitting in cars on ridge roads, wondering what they'd seen. I should drive on, find a real town, get gas, get coffee, get back into the world of function and commerce and normalcy. Put distance between myself and this place, this experience. Let it become a memory. Let it become a story I might tell sometimes, or maybe never tell. Who would believe it? Who could believe it? But I still didn't start the car. Something wasn't finished. Something was still happening, or about to happen, or needed to happen before I could leave. A completion, a closing, an ending that would allow the beginning of whatever came next. Let your jaw go slack. You're holding tension there without knowing it. in the muscles of your face, around your eyes, in your temples. Release it all. Let your face become smooth, peaceful. The face of someone deeply asleep, someone who has let go of all concern, all worry, all engagement with the world. Someone who is simply resting, simply being held by sleep. The sky was definitely lighter. I could see the horizon now. A line separating earth from sky, irregular where the hills rose, but definite, clear, and the sky above it was shifting from black to the deepest blue, to indigo, the color of the sky in the last minutes before sunrise, when darkness is still. Dominant but light has announced its intention to return. Stars were visible, more than before. The storm clouds had moved on completely. What remained was a clear sky, washed clean, every star sharp and bright. I could see the Milky Way, that band of light that is actually billions of stars, too distant and too numerous to distinguish individually. Our galaxy, seen edge-on from our position within it. A river of light, a path. Ancient peoples used it for navigation, for orientation, for knowing where they were in the world. In some cultures, the Milky Way was seen as the road the dead traveled, the path to the afterlife, souls ascending, moving from earth to stars, from the temporary to the eternal, from the world of change to the world of permanence. I thought about the town. Was it dead? Or had it never been alive? Was it a ghost, a memory, an echo of something that had once existed and somehow left an impression that could still be perceived under the right conditions? Or was it more real than the normal world? Was it what reality actually looked like when you could see past the veil? When the filters we normally use to navigate the world were temporarily removed? Maybe the town was always there. Maybe it was there right now, just invisible, just operating at a frequency we couldn't normally perceive. And the storm had somehow shifted perception, had tuned me to the right frequency, had allowed me to see, your breathing is barely there, shallow, slow, the kind of breathing that happens in the deepest part of sleep. When the body is fully at rest, when consciousness has completely withdrawn, when you are not present even to yourself, just existence without awareness, being without knowing, the purest form of rest. Light was growing, defining the landscape more clearly. The hills were covered in trees, pine and deciduous mixed. The valley where the town had been was actually larger than I'd thought, maybe a mile across, with a stream running through it. I could see the glint of water now, silver in the pre-dawn light. The stream probably fed into a river somewhere downstream. The river into a larger river, eventually to the ocean. Water always moving, always flowing, always returning to where it came from before, evaporating and beginning the e-cycle again. The valley looked normal, natural. There was no cleared area where a town might have stood. No roads, no foundations, no sign that human beings had ever touched that space. Just forest and stream, just wild land, just earth doing what earth does when left alone. Had I imagined it, the whole thing? Was I that tired? Had my mind created an elaborate vision from darkness and rain and exhaustion? It was possible. The brain does strange things. Under stress, under isolation, under the influence of monotony and focus. Highway hypnosis is real. A semi-conscious state that can occur during long drives, where you're awake but not fully aware, where hours pass and you don't remember them, where the drive becomes automatic and consciousness drifts elsewhere. But no, I knew what I'd seen. The town was real as anything, as real as the car around me, as real as the hills, as real as the stars fading overhead as dawn light strengthened. It had existed. I had seen it. And the fact that it was gone now, that it left no trace, that didn't make it less real, just made it rare, ephemeral, a phenomenon that existed at the intersection of conditions, of weather and time and place and witness. You are completely asleep now. The words continue, but you don't hear them, or you hear them in a different way, not as sounds, but as images, as feelings, as dreams forming around syllables. The story has become your dream. The town exists now in your sleeping mind. You walk its streets, look in its windows, stand in doorways that don't exist, and it's all real, more real than reality. The way dreams are when you're fully inside them, when you believe completely, when you don't question. The sun touched the horizon, not visible yet, but close. The sky in the east was orange now, brilliant orange, fading to yellow, fading to blue, the color spectrum of dawn. And with the color came definition, the world snapping into focus, trees becoming individual, rocks becoming visible, the stream catching light and multiplying it, everything sharp, clear, undeniable. I looked at the place where the town had been one last time. In the growing light, it was just valley, just forest, just a beautiful spot in the countryside that would make a nice postcard, that hikers might walk through without ever knowing that sometimes, under certain conditions, buildings stood there, streets ran there, lights glowed there, and someone stood in a window, watching, waiting for someone to see. I started the car. The engine caught immediately. Reliable, mechanical, predictable. The heater started blowing. Cool air at first, then gradually warming. The headlights came on, bright against the dawn. Unnecessary, but comforting. A sign of function, of normality, of the world working the way it was supposed to. The gas gauge showed 3/4 of a tank, plenty to get wherever I was going. The oil pressure was normal. The temperature gauge rising slowly toward the middle. Everything fine. Everything working. As if I'd only been stopped for a few minutes. As if hours hadn't passed. As if the night hadn't contained what it contained. I put the car in drive, pulled back onto the highway. The tires crunched on wet gravel, then found pavement. The road stretched ahead, empty. Dawn light making the asphalt gleam, the white lines bright. Everything clean and new, like the world had just been created, and I was the first to see it in the rearview mirror. The valley receded, falling behind, becoming distance, becoming memory. The sun broke the horizon, a sliver of gold, then more, then the full disk, bright enough that I had to squint, had to flip down the visor. Normal morning problems, normal solutions. The day was beginning, the ordinary day, with its ordinary concerns and ordinary movements. People would wake, would shower, would eat breakfast, would go to work or school or wherever their routines took them, and none of them would know about the town. None of them would believe it if I told them, and that was fine. That was as it should be. Some things are meant to be private, personal, held close, sleep deeply, rest completely. The story is over, but the dream continues. You'll carry the town with you into your sleep, into your dreams, and maybe there, in that space where impossible things are commonplace, you'll see it again. You'll walk its streets. You'll understand what it means, what it was, why it exists. And when you wake, you'll forget, or think you've forgotten, but something will remain, a feeling, a sense of mystery, a knowledge that the world is larger and stranger than it appears, than we're told, than we usually allow ourselves to believe. The highway unfurled ahead like a ribbon, gray pavement still wet from the night's rain, puddles in the low spots. The whole world drenched and dripping, but clean, washed, renewed, the way things always feel after a storm. Like the air has been scrubbed, like colors are brighter, like everything has been reset to some original state, pure, uncomplicated. I drove slowly, no hurry, nowhere specific to be. The sun was climbing, the sky changing from orange to blue, high, thin clouds catching the light, turning pink, then white, then fading into the general brightness of day. The storm was completely gone. Hard to believe it had ever been there. The sky looked like it had been clear forever, would be clear forever. Storms, just a story people told, not real, not possible. Your body is so still now, so quiet, every muscle relaxed, every joint loose. You're not holding yourself together anymore, not maintaining posture, not presenting yourself to the world. You've let all that go. You're just a body at rest, just flesh and bone and breath, just the biological machine doing its work, repairing, refreshing, preparing for tomorrow. The landscape was beautiful in the morning light. The hills rolled on, covered in trees that were that particular green that comes after rain, saturated, almost glowing. The leaves heavy with water, dripping, creating tiny rivers down branches, down trunks, into the earth. Everything connected, everything part of the same system, the same cycle. Water rising, water falling, always moving, never still. I passed a road sign, one of those green ones that tells you what towns are ahead. I read the names, but they meant nothing to me. I didn't know where I was, not really. Somewhere in the middle of the country, somewhere between where I'd been and where I was going, in the between space, the transitional zone, neither here nor there, just passing through. The radio still didn't work. I tried it once more, static, but different static than before, less pure, more varied. Like somewhere distant stations were broadcasting, and the signal was just too weak to resolve, to become clear. Just the suggestion of voices, of music, of the normal programming of morning radio, traffic reports, news, songs, all mixed together into incomprehensible noise. I turned it off again. I didn't need it. The sound of the engine was enough. The hum of tires on wet pavement. These were good sounds, honest sounds. The sounds of movement, of progress, of journey. Let your mind empty completely. You've been following the story, tracking the words, maintaining some thread of awareness, but you don't need to anymore. The story will continue whether you're listening or not. So let go. Let the words become just sounds. Let the sounds become just vibrations. Let the vibrations fade into the general background of existence, and you float in that background, weightless, timeless, free. A gas station appeared. Ahead, small, old-fashioned, 2 pumps. A building that was part convenience store, part auto repair shop. Lights on inside. A pickup truck parked at the side. Signs of human activity, of normal life, of the world functioning the way it always functions. I pulled in, parked at one of the pumps, turned off the engine. The sudden silence was jarring. After hours of mechanical sound, the absence was almost loud. I sat for a moment, adjusting, then opened the door and stepped out. The air was cold, colder than I expected, that after-storm cold, when the weather system has passed and pulled all the warm air with it, leaving behind something clean but harsh. I was in short sleeves, hadn't thought to grab a jacket, hadn't thought about much of anything except driving, except moving, except leaving the ridge and the valley and the memory of the town behind. Your consciousness is barely there now, just a flicker, a dim awareness floating somewhere in the depths of sleep. You're not really hearing this anymore, not really present. You're already dreaming, already gone. The words are just sounds in the darkness, just vibrations that your sleeping mind transforms into images, into feelings, into the strange logic of dreams where everything makes sense even when nothing makes sense. The gas pump was old, mechanical numbers instead of digital. You had to squeeze the handle and watch the numbers flip, ones, tens, hundreds of cents, becoming dollars. The smell of gasoline was strong, acrid, but somehow pleasant, evocative. The smell of motion, of going places, of change. While the tank filled, I looked around. The station sat in a wide spot in the road. Nothing else nearby, just forest, just hills. The highway continuing in both directions. The sun climbing steadily, getting warmer. The cold air beginning to moderate. By afternoon, it would be pleasant. By evening, mild. The storm already becoming yesterday's weather, tomorrow's memory. A man emerged from the building, old, maybe 70, wearing coveralls, wiping his hands on a rag. He nodded at me. I nodded back. He walked toward the pickup, got in, started it. The engine coughed, caught, settled into a rough idle. He sat there for a moment, looking at me, not hostile, not friendly, just looking, assessing the way people do in rural places, trying to place you, decide if you're local, decide if you matter. Then he backed up, turned, pulled onto the highway, heading east, the direction I'd come from, the direction of the storm, the direction of the valley. I wondered if he'd see anything, if the morning light would reveal something I'd missed, some trace of the town, some indication that it had been there, been real, but probably not. Probably the valley was just valley, just land, just another piece of the landscape he drove past every day without really seeing, without wondering about, without knowing that sometimes, in storms, when the conditions aligned perfectly, something impossible happened there. Something was there. Sleep now, completely, totally. Let go of even this thin thread of awareness. Fall into the deep place, the void, the darkness that is somehow restful rather than frightening, the absence that is somehow full rather than empty, the nothing that contains everything. Rest there, be held there. Know that you're safe there, that nothing can reach you, nothing can harm you. You are beyond reach, beyond harm, beyond everything except peace. The pump clicked off. Tank full. I squeezed a little more to round it up to the nearest dollar, then hung up the nozzle, screwed the gas cap back on. The whole ritual familiar, automatic, something I'd done hundreds of times, thousands, a small ceremony of modern life, fuel and payment and movement. Inside the store, a woman sat behind the counter, younger than the man, maybe 50, reading something on her phone. She looked up when I entered. Smile, morning smile, automatic but not unfriendly. The smile of someone who does this every day, who sees hundreds of travelers pass through, who learns not to wonder about them, not to invest. Just smile, transact, watch them leave. I grabbed a coffee, black, hot. The first sip burned my tongue, but I didn't care. The caffeine would help, would wake me up, would push back the exhaustion that was settling in now that I'd stopped moving. Now that my body realized how long it had been since I'd slept, since I'd really rested. I paid for the gas and coffee. The woman rang it up, took my cash, made change. Her hands were steady, practiced. How many times a day did she do this? How many travelers? How many stories? And did she ever wonder where they were coming from? where they were going, what they'd seen in the night. I wanted to ask her about the valley, about the road, about whether anything unusual ever happened around here, whether other people had ever reported seeing things in storms, seeing towns that shouldn't be there, but I didn't. She would have thought I was crazy, or drunk, or high, and what would be the point? If she knew about the town, she couldn't tell me anything I didn't already know. And if she didn't know, telling her wouldn't change anything, wouldn't make it more real, wouldn't make it less strange. So I just said, "Thank you." She said, "Drive safe," and I left. Back to the car, back to the road, back to the journey. You're gone now, completely asleep, the deepest sleep, the kind where time passes and you're not aware, where hours feel like seconds, where you exist in some other space entirely, not here, not conscious, just being in the most basic sense, just the body maintaining itself, just the organism doing what organisms do, nothing more, nothing less perfect, complete, enough. Back on the highway, the road began to change. The hills flattened, the forest thinned, the landscape opening up. Farmland appeared, fields, fences, barns in the distance. Signs of agriculture, of human organization of the land, of civilization pressing back against wildness, imposing order, creating productivity. Towns appeared to real towns, with signs announcing their names, with speed limits dropping from 55 to 45 to 35 as you entered, with gas stations and churches and schools, with people visible, walking, driving, going about their days, the normal fabric of life, predictable, understandable, real in a way that needed no explanation. I drove through them without stopping. These towns were fine, nice probably, places where people lived entire lives, were born, grew up, married, raised families, died, ordinary lives, good lives. But they didn't interest me, not now, not after what I'd seen. These towns were too real, too solid, too permanent. They would be here tomorrow, next year, next century probably. They would appear on maps, in census data, in history books. They were part of the official record, part of the agreed-upon world. The town I'd seen wasn't official, wasn't agreed upon, wasn't permanent or solid or mapped. It existed in the spaces between, in the conditions that rarely aligned. It was liminal, threshold, neither fully here nor fully elsewhere. And maybe that's what made it matter, what made it worth seeing, worth remembering. The fact that it resisted definition, resisted explanation, remained mysterious. Dream deeply, dream of rain and light, dream of windows and figures, dream of places that exist only when you're not looking for them, only when you've stopped trying, only when you're open, when you're receptive, when you've let go of needing the world to make sense, when you've accepted that some things just are, just exist, just present themselves to those who happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right kind of attention. The sun was fully up now, the day established. Whatever magic belonged to the night was gone. Daytime had its own rules, its own logic. Things were visible, clear, definable. The shadows were just shadows. The reflections, just reflections. Mystery retreated, wonder faded. The ordinary took over, and that was fine. That was how it should be, day and night, both necessary, both real, neither better than the other, just different, different modes of being, different ways of experiencing the world. I drove on. The coffee helped, the caffeine flowing through my system, sharpening focus, pushing back the fog. But underneath it, the exhaustion remained. I would need to stop soon, Find a motel, sleep properly, in a bed, with curtains drawn, with the door locked, with all the safety and security that four walls provide, but not yet. I wanted to put more distance between myself and the ridge, more miles, more space. Not because I was afraid, not because I regretted seeing what I'd seen, but because I needed to process, needed to let it settle, needed to carry it inside myself for a while before I tried to think about it, before I tried to understand it, before I tried to fit it into any framework of meaning. Some experiences resist analysis, resist interpretation. They just need to be held, remembered, honored, and maybe eventually they reveal their significance. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they remain opaque, mysterious, and that's their gift. The reminder that not everything can be understood. Not everything needs to be understood. Some things just need to be witnessed, acknowledged, allowed to exist. Sleep carries you now through the rest of the story, through the morning, through the day ahead, through whatever comes next. You're not awake for any of it. You're deep in dreams, deep in rest, deep in the recovery that sleep provides. And when you wake, whenever that is, you'll feel refreshed, renewed, ready, but you'll carry something with you. Some fragment of this story, some image, some feeling, and it will stay with you. Not consciously, maybe, but there, in the background. A reminder, a gift, a secret the storm shared. The highway continued. Miles accumulated. Numbers on green signs changed. Counties changed. The landscape shifted gradually from hills to plains, from forest to farmland to something in between. The variety of the earth, all the different ways land can be, all the different faces it wears. I'd been driving for maybe an hour since the gas station, maybe less. Time was still strange, elastic. My watch remained frozen at 3:47. My phone still dead. The car clock had reset itself to 12 o'clock and was blinking, as if the entire electrical system had been interrupted, as if something had happened that couldn't be explained by normal mechanical problems, as if the storm had done more than just rain and thunder. Let yourself go even deeper. You're already so far down, so far into sleep, but there are deeper levels, places where even dreams don't reach, where consciousness is completely suspended, where the self dissolves entirely, where there's just existence without anyone existing, just the process, just the flow. Rest at that level, be at that level, disappear into that level. The coffee was gone, the cup empty. I'd drunk it without really tasting it, without savoring it. Just consumption, just fuel, caffeine delivery system. I thought about stopping for more, but I didn't really want more. What I wanted was sleep, real sleep. Not the alertness caffeine provides, but the actual rest, the actual restoration. I started watching for motels, those roadside places that advertise themselves with tall signs visible from the highway. Vacancy, colored TV, Wi-Fi, AC, the amenities of temporary lodging, the promises of rest, of privacy, of a door you can close between yourself and the world. But there were none. The highway stretched through country that was either too rural or too prosperous for such things. Either people didn't pass through here often enough to support a motel, or they passed through on their way to somewhere else and didn't stop. The road itself was the destination, the moving, the transition from point A to point B. No need for rest in between. So I kept driving, fighting the exhaustion now, blinking hard, rolling down the window despite the cold, letting the wind blast my face, sharp, uncomfortable, but effective. Can't sleep with wind roaring at you. Can't drift off with your eyes watering and your face numb. It's a technique, not sustainable, but enough for now. Enough until I found somewhere to stop. Your mind is blank now. Empty, not thinking, not processing, not doing anything except the most basic maintenance functions. Keeping the body alive, keeping the breath flowing, keeping the heart beating. Everything else is shut down, powered off, gone. You are as close to not being as you can get while still technically being. And it's peaceful there. It's perfect there. Nothing is required of you there. Nothing is expected. You can just be nothing, and that nothing is everything. A town appeared, bigger than the others. Not a city, but a real town. Multiple stoplights, shopping centers, chain restaurants. The architecture of American commerce, familiar from coast to coast. The same stores, the same signs, the same layout. You could be anywhere, which is comforting, which is disorienting, which is both. I pulled off the highway, found a motel, 2 stories, exterior entrances, the classic motel configuration. Half the parking lot was full, trucks mostly, a few cars, people passing through, salespeople maybe, or families on vacation, or others like me, driving, moving, traveling for reasons they might not be able to explain. The office was warm, too warm, the heater running full blast. A man sat behind the desk, older, watching a small television. Some morning show, talking heads, discussing things that happened yesterday, that would be forgotten tomorrow. The endless churn of news, of content, of information that isn't really informative. He looked up when I entered, smiled. Automatic, professional smile. Do you need a room? Yes. How many nights? Just 1, maybe 2. We'll start with 1. He typed on a keyboard, asked for my credit card. My ID, the usual ritual. I paid. He gave me a key. Actual metal key attached to a plastic diamond with a room number. 215, 2nd floor, facing the parking lot. He pointed toward the stairs. The room was exactly what I expected. 2 double beds, a nightstand between them, a dresser with a TV on top, a desk, a bathroom, all of it clean but worn, used by thousands of people, slept in by thousands of people, each leaving some infinitesimal trace, some microscopic piece of themselves, all of it accumulating, all of it becoming the character of the room, the feeling of it, neither welcoming nor hostile, just neutral, just functional, just a space for temporary occupancy. Sleep now. Fall into it completely. You've been hovering at the edge for so long, resisting the final surrender, but resist no more. Let go. Let yourself fall. Let the darkness take you. Let the peace take you. Let the absence take you. You don't need to be conscious anymore. Don't need to be aware. Don't need to be anything. Just sleep. Just rest. Just be gone. I closed the curtains. The room went dark. Not completely. Light leaked around the edges, but dark enough to sleep. I sat on the bed, unlaced my shoes, pulled them off. My feet ached. My back ached. Everything ached. The accumulated fatigue of the drive, of the night, of the vigil on the ridge. I lay back. The bed was soft. Too soft, maybe. Cheap mattress. Springs visible through inadequate padding, but I didn't care. Horizontal was all that mattered. Not sitting, not driving, just lying down. Just letting gravity press me into the mattress. Just letting every muscle stop working, stop holding, stop doing. The ceiling was textured. That popcorn texture, popular in cheap construction. Acoustic tiles, sound absorption, each little bump casting its tiny shadow in the dim light. patterns forming and dissolving as my eyes tried to focus, tried to find meaning, tried to stay active even though I was telling them to rest, to close, to stop. I thought about the town, tried to hold the image in my mind, the street, the buildings, the lights, but it was already fading, already becoming uncertain. Had the church been on the left or the right? Had the theater marquee been lit or dark at the end? How many streetlights had there been? I couldn't remember, couldn't access the details with the clarity they'd had when I was watching. When I was there, memory is unreliable. It changes, it edits, it simplifies. By tomorrow, the town would be even vaguer. A week from now, just impressions, feelings, the sense that something had happened but not the specifics. This is normal. This is how memory works. We don't record experiences. We reconstruct them, and each reconstruction is slightly different, influenced by everything that's happened since, by everything we've learned, by everything we need the memory to be. You are dreaming now. The story has become a dream. The town exists in your sleeping mind. You walk through it. The streets are empty but not threatening. The buildings have doors now. You can enter. Inside are rooms you've never seen but somehow recognize. Furniture you've never touched but somehow know. The town is yours now. It belongs to your unconscious. It will appear in your dreams from time to time, without warning, without explanation, just there, just present, just offering itself to you. And you'll wake with the feeling that you've been somewhere important, somewhere significant, but you won't remember where, won't remember why, just the feeling, just the sense of having touched something mysterious. I should close my eyes, should stop thinking, should just sleep. But my mind was still active, still processing, still trying to make sense, trying to categorize, trying to file the experience away in some mental drawer where it would be safe, where it would be understood, where it would stop feeling so large, so significant, so unresolved. But it resisted categorization. The town didn't fit anywhere. Not in the drawer labeled dreams, not in the drawer labeled hallucinations, not in the drawer labeled misperceptions. It had been real. I'd seen it for hours, clear and detailed and present. That wasn't how dreams worked. That wasn't how hallucinations worked. That wasn't how mistaking one thing for another worked. So where did it fit? What drawer did it belong in? Maybe no drawer. Maybe it had to exist outside the filing system, outside the need to understand. Maybe it was one of those experiences that resist explanation by design, that exist specifically to challenge our need to make everything fit, to make everything make sense. The ceiling blurred. My eyes were closing, despite my intention to stay awake, despite my desire to think this through, to process it, to arrive at some conclusion. But the body had other priorities. The body needed rest, and the body was winning. The body always wins, eventually. Sleep, deep and dreamless. The kind where you close your eyes and open them, and hours have passed, but it feels like seconds. Where time compresses, where consciousness is completely suspended, where you are nowhere and nothing, and it's perfect. It's exactly what you need. It's healing. It's restoration. It's the gift the body gives itself when you finally stop interfering, when you finally get out of the way, when you finally surrender. Somewhere in the depths of sleep, images formed. Not quite dreams, not quite memories. Something in between. The town appearing again, but different now, changed. The product of sleeping mind rather than waking perception. The street was wider or narrower. It changed as I watched. The buildings were taller, then shorter. Then not buildings at all, but suggestions, sketches, ideas of buildings, rather than actual structures. The lights glowed, but from no visible source, just light existing in space, hovering, present, without cause. I was walking now, down the main street. My footsteps should have echoed on the pavement, but made no sound. The silence was absolute, more than silence. The absence of even the possibility of sound, like walking through a photograph, through a painting, through something two-dimensional, pretending to be three-dimensional. The windows reflected nothing. I passed them and saw no reflection, as if I wasn't there, as if I was observing from outside rather than participating from within. Ghost walking through ghost town, neither fully present, neither fully real. Let yourself drift deeper still, below dreams, below thought, below even the basic awareness that you exist, into the void, into the darkness that is complete, that is total, that is the absence of all things, including absence itself. Rest at that impossible level. Be at that impossible level. Know that you can't actually get there, but the attempt alone is deeply restful, deeply healing, deeply necessary. The church appeared to my left, or my right, or straight ahead. Geography was uncertain here, unstable. The church was white, then gray, then made of light itself. The steeple pointing upward, but toward what? There was no sky here, just darkness above. Infinite darkness, the kind that presses down, that has weight. That suggests depths rather than heights. I wanted to enter the church, to see what was inside, but there was no door, just like before. Just like when I'd been watching from the ridge. The walls were continuous, unbroken, sealed, but somehow I knew what was inside anyway. Pews, an altar, stained glass windows, showing scenes I couldn't quite make out, and emptiness, profound emptiness, the kind that speaks of waiting, of patience, of readiness for something that hasn't arrived and might never arrive. The diner was ahead, or behind, or beside me. It moved when I wasn't looking, the kind of movement that only happens in dreams, where things are where they need to be, regardless of logic, regardless of consistency. The red vinyl of the stools glowed to read, unnaturally read, the color of emergency lights, of warning, but not threatening, just intense, just more real than real things usually are. Inside the diner, through the windows that both reflected everything and nothing, I could see figures, not the empty space I'd seen before. Figures, sitting in booths, at the counter, but when I tried to focus on them, they dissolved, became shadows, became suggestions, became the idea of people rather than actual people. And I understood. This was a town of ideas, of potentials, of things that almost were but never quite achieved full existence. Your breathing is so faint now, so quiet. A doctor would have to watch carefully to confirm you were breathing at all. The rise and fall of your chest minimal, barely perceptible. You are as close to stillness as a living thing can be, as close to death without actually dying. And it's beautiful there. It's peaceful there. It's the rest that all living things need. The pause between heartbeats, the silence between breaths, the nothing that allows something to exist. The figure appeared in the window. Second floor, third building past the theater, exactly as before, standing, watching. But now I was close enough to see details, or should have been. But the details wouldn't resolve. The figure was tall, or short, or neither. It wore clothes, or didn't, or wore something that wasn't quite clothes, something that covered without concealing, that presented without revealing. I raised my hand, the same gesture as before. palm against glass. Except there was no glass now, no window, just the space where the window should be, and my hand passed through, into the building, into the room, into the darkness behind the light, and the figure raised its hand to mirrored my gesture, or taught me the gesture, or we both raised our hands simultaneously, without cause, without intention, just the synchronicity that happens in dreams, the meaningful coincidence that feels significant even though it explains nothing. We stood like that, hands raised, separated by nothing, connected by everything, and I felt understanding pass between us, not words, not even thoughts, just recognition. The figure knew me. I knew the figure. We had always known each other, would always know each other. This meeting wasn't the first, wouldn't be the last. This was just one moment in an ongoing relationship that existed outside time, outside place, outside the normal boundaries of existence. Then the figure lowered its hand, stepped back, became shadow, became darkness, became absence. And I was alone in the street again, in the town that wasn't quite there, in the dream that wasn't quite dream. Sleep without dreaming now, without images, without story, just the blankness, just the void, just the nothing that is somehow restful, that somehow restores, that somehow prepares you for waking, for the return to consciousness, for the resumption of being a self in a world, but not yet, not for hours yet, just sleep, just rest, just absence. Thunder rolled, distant, approaching, the storm returning, or a new storm, or the same storm that never really left, just circled, just waited, just prepared for another pass. The sky darkened, or was already dark, or had never been anything but dark. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, then torrential. The town began to glow again, the lights coming on, or had they ever been off, or were they always on, but only visible in rain? I was back on the ridge, in the car, looking down at the valley, at the town appearing, except this time I knew what would happen. This time I'd seen it before. This time I was returning rather than discovering, and that changed everything, changed the quality of wonder, changed it from surprise to recognition, from mystery to ritual, from question to answer, except there was no answer. Just the same question asked again, just the same mystery presented again, just the same impossible town glowing in the storm again. The figure in the window, already there, already waiting, already watching, as if it had never left, as if it had stood there through the daylight hours, through my drive, through my arrival at the motel, through my sleep, just standing, just waiting, just watching for my return. And I understood. I would return, again and again. Not physically, maybe never physically again. Maybe this was the only time I'd actually drive past this valley during a storm, but in dreams, in thoughts, in the moments between waking and sleeping, in the space that opens sometimes when rain is falling and the world goes quiet and the boundaries between real and not real become thin, I would return. I would always return. This place was mine now, this impossible town, this liminal space, this threshold between what is and what might be. You are nowhere now. The story has faded. The words are gone. There's just silence, just darkness, just the deep rest that heals all wounds, that resolves all questions, that prepares you for tomorrow, for waking, for the return to the world of light and activity and things that need to be done. But tomorrow is far away. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet. There's only now, only this, only the perfect peace of deep sleep. The storm intensified. The rain hammering, the thunder constant, the lightning continuous. But I wasn't afraid, wasn't concerned. This was right. This was how it should be. The storm was necessary. The storm was the condition. The storm was the key that opened the door. Without the storm, the town couldn't be. Without the town, the storm was just weather, just water falling, just atmospheric dynamics. But together, they were something more. They were invitation. They were revelation. They were proof that the world contains more than we usually see, more than we usually allow ourselves to see. I closed my eyes. Even in the dream, I closed my eyes. And behind those dream eyes, deeper dreams formed, layers upon layers. Dreams within dreams, each one taking me further from the surface, further from waking, further from the normal world, deeper into the mystery, deeper into the truth that hides beneath truth, the reality that underlies reality. And at the bottom of all those layers, at the deepest point, there was light, not the absence of light, not darkness, but light, pure light, without source, without direction, just light existing everywhere at once. And in that light, the town was there, not glowing anymore, not lit by artificial lights, but made of light itself. The buildings were light. The street was light. The figures in windows were light. Everything was light. And I was light, to no longer separate from what I was seeing, no longer observer, apart from observed, just part of it, part of the light, part of the town, part of the mystery. And it was peaceful. It was perfect. It was home in a way that nowhere physical could ever be home. It was the place I'd been looking for without knowing I was looking. The place I'd always been heading toward. The place that only appears in storms, only appears in dreams, only appears when you stop trying to make sense of things and just allow them to be what they are. Rest now, completely, finally, ultimately. Let everything go. Let even the story go. Let even the town go. Let even the dream of the town go. Just be, just sleep, just exist in the most basic way possible. As a living body needing rest, getting rest, being restored by rest. Nothing more complicated than that. Nothing more profound. Just rest. Light filtered through the curtains, thin, weak, the light of afternoon, not morning. Hours had passed, many hours. The sleep had been deep, complete, the kind of sleep that feels like dying and returning, like traveling to some other place and coming back changed. I opened my eyes. The ceiling, the popcorn texture, the same as when I'd closed my eyes, but different somehow, as if the room had moved during my sleep. As if the whole motel had relocated, as if I'd fallen asleep in one place and woken in another. But no, same room, same bed, same world, just seen with eyes that had been somewhere else. Let yourself hover here, between sleeping and waking, not quite in either state, not quite committed to either. This is a good place, a liminal place, a threshold. The same kind of space the town existed in, between real and not real, between here and there, between now and then. Stay in this space as long as you can. There's wisdom here. There's peace here. There's freedom from having to choose, from having to be one thing or another. My body was stiff, joints aching, the stillness of long sleep, of not moving for hours. I stretched, felt vertebrae pop, felt muscles complain, then release. The physical body reacquainting itself with being physical, with having to move, with having to exist in space and time rather than just floating in the darkness of unconsciousness. The watch on my wrist showed 3:47, still, frozen, dead. a monument to the moment something changed. I took it off, set it on the nightstand. I didn't need it anymore. Didn't need to track time. Time would pass, whether I tracked it or not. The sun would rise and set. The earth would turn. My body would age. Time's passage was inevitable. Marking it was optional. My phone was still dead too, still showing that symbol. Circle with a line through it, or zero, or the letter O, or something else entirely. Some glyph from a language I'd never learned. A message I couldn't read. I set it next to the watch. 2 dead devices. 2 failed attempts to measure and manage the world. 2 reminders that some things resist measurement, resist management, resist our attempts to control them. Your eyes want to close again. You can feel it. The pull, the invitation. You could go back to sleep, could drift off again, could return to the dreams, to the town, to the light. And maybe you will. Maybe in a moment. Maybe after the story ends. Maybe you'll carry the story back into sleep with you. Let it continue there. Let it become the foundation for new dreams, for deeper understanding, for the kind of knowing that only comes when consciousness gets out of the way. I got up, walked to the window, opened the curtains. The parking lot was bathed in late afternoon sun, the same world. Cars coming and going, people living their lives, normal lives, lives where towns stay put, where buildings have doors, where storms are just weather, where nothing impossible happens because impossible things don't happen, can't happen. The world doesn't work that way, except it does, sometimes, for some people. When the conditions align, when the filters we usually use to navigate reality temporarily fail, when we're tired enough, or open enough, or lucky enough, or cursed enough, when we happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right quality of attention. I had been in the right place at the right time, and I had seen, and now I carried that seeing, would carry it always, not as a burden, not as proof, not as something to convince others of, just as knowing, personal, private, mine. The shower was hot, almost too hot. I stood under the water and let it beat against my skin, let it wash away the sweat and road dust and fatigue, let it wash away everything except the memory it couldn't touch, the memory that was written too deep, carved into neural pathways, encoded in synapses, part of me now, permanent. I thought about where to go next. I'd been heading somewhere, before the storm, before the town. I'd had a destination, or at least a direction, but I couldn't remember it now. Couldn't remember why I'd been driving, what I'd been looking for. It seemed unimportant now, trivial. Whatever it had been, it didn't matter anymore. The journey had become its own purpose. The seeing had become its own destination. Sleep calls to you again, even now, even in the middle of the story, even though you know there's more to hear. The body doesn't care about stories. The body cares about rest, about restoration, about getting what it needs. And what it needs is more sleep. Always more sleep. Never enough sleep. So let yourself go. Let the story fade. Let the words become distant. Let sleep take over again. You can always return to the story later. It will wait. Stories are patient. I got dressed. Same clothes as yesterday. Wrinkled, worn, but clean enough, good enough. Presentable enough for a traveler, for someone passing through. For someone who carries strange knowledge but doesn't advertise it. Who has seen impossible things but looks ordinary. Who knows the world is larger than it appears but doesn't insist anyone else know it too. I checked out of the motel, returned the key. The same man at the desk, still watching television. Different show, but same format. Same talking heads. Same earnest discussions of things that don't matter. He took the key, asked if everything had been satisfactory. I said yes. He said, drive safe. I said I would. Back in the car. The familiar seat. The familiar dashboard. The familiar smell of the interior. Like putting on an old jacket. Comfortable, known, mine. I started the engine. It caught immediately. Reliable, mechanical, trustworthy, in a way that watches and phones and towns in storms can never be. The clock on the dashboard still blinked 12 o'clock. I didn't reset it. Let it blink. Let it be wrong. Let it be a constant reminder that time is stranger than we think. That clocks measure something, but not everything. That the real rhythm of existence happens beneath the tick of seconds, in the space between heartbeats, in the gaps that aren't gaps but doorways. I pulled out of the parking lot, back onto the highway, back into motion, back into the flow of traffic and distance and journey. Other cars passed. I passed other cars. The normal dance of the road, the normal rhythm of travel. Everyone going somewhere, everyone coming from somewhere, everyone carrying their own stories, their own seeing, their own private knowledge of how strange the world really is. Let yourself be carried now by the story, by the sleep, by the gentle rocking of consciousness as it moves between states. You don't need to hold on, don't need to stay present, don't need to hear every word. The important part has been said. The rest is just details, just the denouement, just the gentle slope down from the peak of the story toward the rest at the end. I drove west, I think. Hard to be sure without instruments, without the sun position being clear, without caring enough to check. West felt right, toward sunset, toward evening, toward the next night. Because night was when things happened, when doors opened, when towns appeared, when the impossible became briefly, beautifully real. The landscape rolled past, different from yesterday or the same. Hard to tell. All landscapes are the same in a way. All roads lead everywhere. All journeys are one journey. The leaving, the traveling, the arriving somewhere that isn't home, the leaving again, the eternal motion, the never settling, the constant searching for something just beyond the horizon. I didn't know if I'd ever see the town again. Probably not. Probably that had been a once-in-a-lifetime event, a conjunction of circumstances so rare it might never repeat. I might drive that stretch of road in 100 storms and never see it again. Might spend my whole life returning to that valley and find nothing but grass and trees and stream. Or maybe I'd see it tomorrow. Maybe it appeared every time it rained. Maybe it was there right now, waiting. Maybe the town was always there and the storm just allowed seeing it, made it visible, made it accessible to consciousness that normally filtered it out, normally ignored it, normally looked right past it toward more practical concerns. I didn't know, wouldn't know, couldn't know, and that was fine. That was good. That was the whole point. The mystery remained mysterious. The question remained unanswered. The town remained impossible. And all of that was perfect, was exactly as it should be, was the gift rather than a puzzle to be solved. Sleep now. Finally, completely. The story is almost over. Just a little more. Just a few more words. Then you can let go entirely, can surrender totally, can drift into the deepest darkness, can rest in the most complete way. Just a little longer. Just a little more. Then peace. Then silence. Then nothing. Evening came, as evening always does. Gradually, the light changing quality, becoming golden, becoming orange, becoming red. The sun approaching the horizon, preparing for its nightly disappearance, its daily death and promised resurrection. The cycle that never breaks, that never fails, that we count on without thinking about it, that we trust completely. I was still driving, had been driving for hours. The road had changed, become smaller, less traveled. 2 lanes without shoulder, trees pressing close, hills rising on both sides. A road that went somewhere specific rather than everywhere in general. A road with purpose, with destination. Even if I didn't know what that destination was. The sky was darkening, clouds building again. Not the violent black of last night's storm, but something softer, gray, gentle. The promise of rain, but not the threat of thunder. Just rain, simple rain, the kind that falls steadily for hours, that soaks into the earth, that fills streams and aquifers, that gives without demanding, that nourishes without drama. Let yourself rest in this image. Evening, rain, coming, the road ahead, uncertain, and all of it peaceful, all of it right, all of it exactly as it should be. You are so tired. You've been listening for so long, following for so long, staying with the story when your body wanted sleep. But now sleep can have you. Now you can let go. Now you can drift away completely. The first drops hit the windshield, large, sparse, then more, then steady. The familiar rhythm, the familiar sound, rain on metal and glass, white noise, soothing noise, the sound that says you're protected, you're inside, you're dry, while the world outside gets wet, safe, secure, apart from, but part of the weather. I turned on the wipers. They swept in their arc, left to right, right to left, clearing water, making vision possible, making forward motion possible. The partnership between human and machine, between intention and mechanism, between where you want to go and the tools that help you get there. The road curved up, the car climbed, first gear, second, the engine working, the transmission doing its job, up the side of a hill, a ridge, the landscape opening up, the trees falling away, and at the top, a place to pull over. A scenic overlook maybe, or just a wide spot. A place where the shoulder broadened, where you could stop, where you could look. I pulled over, stopped, turned off the engine. The silence returned. Just rain now. Just the patter on the roof. Just the gentle percussion of water finding metal, of weather touching the car, touching me through the car, connecting me to the storm, even while keeping me separate from it. Your breathing is so slow, so gentle. You might not even be here anymore, might have already slipped away, might be dreaming already, or sleeping beyond dreams, in that deep place where nothing happens, where nothing needs to happen, where existence itself is enough, where being is complete without doing, without experiencing, without anything except the pure fact of being. I looked out through the rain-streaked windshield. Below was a valley. Of course it was. There's always a valley. The land makes valleys. Water makes valleys. Valleys are where things settle, where they collect, where they wait. And in this valley, as evening deepened and rain fell steady, something was beginning to glow. Not bright, not yet. Just the suggestion of light, the promise of illumination. A few points, growing, multiplying, spreading along what might have been a road, what might have been a street, what might have been the main thoroughfare of a small town that was deciding whether to exist tonight, whether to appear, whether to present itself to this witness, to this tired traveler, to this person who had seen it once and carried the memory, who had dreamed it, who had returned even without meaning to, even without knowing this was the same place, the same valley, the same impossible location. The lights grew brighter, more defined. Streetlights, window lights, the familiar glow, the warm, incandescent glow that shouldn't be there, that couldn't be there. What was there was undeniably there. Again, always, forever perhaps. The town that appears in storms. The town that exists at the threshold. The town that waits for witnesses. And I understood. This was why I'd been driving. Why I'd left the motel. Why I'd gone west. Not because I'd chosen it, but because I'd been pulled, drawn, called. The town wanted to be seen again, needed to be seen again. And I was the one who would see it, the one who could see it, the one chosen by circumstance or fate or random chance to be the witness, to hold the knowing, to carry the story. Sleep completely now. You've heard enough. You know the town is there, will always be there, waiting in its valley, glowing in its impossible way. And that's enough. That's all you need. The rest is just me sitting in the car, looking, watching, witnessing. You don't need to watch with me. You can sleep. You can dream your own version. You can make the town yours in your unconscious, in your own private experience, in the place where stories become real because you're no longer skeptical, no longer filtering, no longer insisting things make sense. The town was complete now. Every light burning, every building present, the church, the theater, the diner, the rows of storefronts, the houses on side streets I hadn't seen before, or had seen but forgotten, or was seeing now for the first time. All of it there, all of it real, all of it glowing in the gentle rain, dot, and in the window. Second floor, third building past the theater. The figure, standing, facing outward, facing the storm, facing me, exactly as before, exactly as always, eternal, patient, present, the watcher who is watched, the presence that acknowledges presence, the confirmation that I'm not alone in seeing this, that the town knows it's being seen, that the relationship goes both ways. I raised my hand again, palm against the window. The same gesture, the same greeting, the same acknowledgement, and the figure raised its hand, mirrored, synchronized, connected across distance, across the barrier between the normal and the extraordinary, between the world of things that make sense and the world of things that simply are. We stood like that, the figure and I, for how long? Time didn't matter, wasn't relevant. Could have been seconds, could have been hours, could have been years. Just the moment, just the connection, just the knowing that passes between beings who recognize each other, who see each other truly, who understand without needing explanation. And then I lowered my hand, and the figure lowered its hand, and we both stood a moment longer, just standing, just being, just sharing the space of this moment, this storm, this impossible town that exists because it does, because it can, because reality is larger than we think, more mysterious than we admit, more full of doorways and thresholds and liminal spaces where the impossible becomes briefly, beautifully real. The rain continued to fall. The town continued to glow. The night continued to deepen, and I sat in the car, watching, witnessing, knowing I would stay as long as the town stayed, as long as the lights burned, as long as the figure stood in the window, however long that was, whether all night or just moments, it didn't matter. I was where I needed to be, doing what I needed to do, seeing what needed to be seen. Sleep now, finally, completely, utterly. Let go of everything. Let go of the story. Let go of the town. Let go of consciousness itself. Just sleep, deep sleep. The sleep that heals all wounds, that solves all problems, that prepares you for waking, for tomorrow, for the return to the ordinary world where towns stay put and storms are just weather and nothing impossible ever happens. But you'll know differently. You'll carry this story, this town, this impossibility, and sometimes in storms, in rain, in the moments between sleeping and waking, you'll remember. You'll see it again in your mind's eye. You'll know that somewhere, in some valley, on some road, under the right conditions, the town appears. The lights glow. The figure stands in the window. And for those who happen to be passing, who happen to stop, who happen to look, the impossible becomes real. And that changes everything. That changes how you see the world, how you move through it, how you understand what's possible. Because if one impossible thing is real, if one mystery exists, then maybe others do too. Maybe the world is full of such things, such places, such moments, all waiting for the right witness, the right conditions, the right quality of attention. Sleep now. Dream of rain and light. Dream of empty streets and glowing windows. Dream of figures in windows and hands raised in greeting. Dream of the town that only appears during storms, and know that it's real as anything, as real as sleep, as real as dreams, as real as the rain falling on the roof above you, as real as the breath moving through you, as real as the heartbeat carrying you through this night and into tomorrow. The storm continues. The town glows. The witness watches, and you sleep deep, peaceful, complete, held by the story, held by the mystery, held by the knowledge that the world contains more wonders than we usually see, more magic than we usually allow, more possibilities than we usually imagine. And in the morning, whenever morning comes, you'll wake refreshed, renewed, ready, and you'll carry something with you. Some fragment of this story, some image of the town, some sense of the mystery, and it will stay with you always. A reminder, a gift, a secret the storm shared, a truth the night revealed, a knowing that can never be unknown. Sleep now, rest now, dream now. The town watches over you. The rain sings you to sleep, and all is well. All is peaceful. All is exactly as it should be in this moment, in this story, in this gentle transition from waking to sleeping, from conscious to unconscious, from the world of things that make sense to the world of things that simply are. Good night. Sleep well. Dream deeply. And may you always find the towns that only appear during storms.